Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian, and in case you're not aware, I am a GrandMaster support player. I previously made a support tier list for Season 3 in my last video, and today we're kind of continuing off with the DPS heroes this time. And just like this in the last video, I'll be making a tank video tier list after this as well. With that being said, there are a couple clarifications I want to make first before I start the tier list. First of all, being that every single hero in the game is playable. Okay. This tier list is mostly to just kind of showcase my thoughts and opinions on how reliable some heroes are more than others, or more so, more optimal picks, I guess you could say. But every single hero can be played. There's hardly any heroes in the game at the moment that you wouldn't really want to play, except maybe like one or two. With that being said, this tier list is also being formed under the assumption that you're playing these heroes in their most optimal playstyle. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect, obviously. This tier list is more focused towards from like gold all the way up to like low to mid GM. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and start off the tier list. We're doing DPS. I already organized them according to like category of DPS. So we have like the flankers, the snipers, hit scan, projectiles, and such. So we'll kind of go in order. So that way it gives a little bit of a comparison between each of the different subgroups. First of them being the flankers. I would say right now Tracer is easily probably the best flanker in the game at the moment, especially in my GM games. Playing against a good Tracer player is an absolute nightmare. The only way I even have a reliable way to play against Tracer is if we have a Brigida. If we don't have a Brigida, the Tracer just farms us. Just 100%. Tracer just farms us. And even when I'm playing Brigida, I can still hold my own. I can at least still like keep my team alive and my second support alive, especially. But it can still be a tough matchup in my GM games. In the average players game, though, the metal rank players, Tracers aren't as good. So usually you can just kind of exist as Brig, and that's enough to kind of scare away a lot of Tracer players. Tracer's really good though, easily the best flanker or dive DPS in the game at the moment. Sombra, unfortunately, I think is going in the niche category, which is sad because I'm a Sombra player myself when I play DPS, but I can't even pick Sombra right now just because ever since they did her damage nerf from her hack, where they nerfed her 40% extra damage to what is 25% damage, I think it is right now, extra damage. That really made it difficult for her to like solidify kills. Like even right now, there are so many times I will get a squishy, like I'll get him to 1, but then I can't finish the kill either because I got bursted down and I have to teleport back to safety, or they end up getting help fast enough that, yeah, no, it's pretty hard right now to play Sombra unless you're literally someone who tries to like one trick Sombra, and you're like a Sombra specialist. Like let me put it like this: in order to get like decent value in a plat level game, you need to be playing like a diamond. You practically need to be playing like the next rank to get decent value at your current rank. That's how hard it feels like to play Sombra at the moment, to put in a little perspective. So she's still playable. There are times where she's definitely good. It's just she's just a lot more niche to get value out of compared to some of the other flankers, for example. Genji, I'm actually, believe it or not, I think Genji's in a pretty solid, pretty decent state. I don't know if I would say solid. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna say solid. Like, I know despite all the memes and stuff for Genji getting a nerf, even when it's when there's something wrong with the game that's not related to him, Genji's actually in a pretty good state. Even in my GM games, I'll still see Genji every once in a while. Genji still pops off. yeah, you know, he still has good damage. His deflect is still really strong. Blade is still really good. He's honestly still a good character. So I don't know what else to say about it. He's still pretty good. Especially if you're a Genji main, like you can still pop off with Genji even at the highest ranks. Reaper, I'm putting in the solid category. Spoiler alert, most heroes are probably going to be in the solid category. But yeah, still solid. 250 HP, has an escape button with the Wraith. Can sort of kind of dive alongside your team. Has good sustain with the self heals and decent ultimate. Just, yeah, he's a solid pick. Nothing much to be explained. Echo is actually pretty solid as well. Echo is probably, I would say, among the solid category, among the flankers, is probably among the top for sure. I would say Genji is a little bit above Reaper in the right hands. Echo is also up here in the right hands, because whenever an Echo, oh my god, Echo copies can be absolutely devastating. She has insane burst damage, or a lot of times, like, I can't even react to the burst damage that happens just because it just comes out of nowhere sometimes. Also helps that she doesn't have footsteps. If she's not flying, of course. When she's flying, you can hear the audio cue for that, but she doesn't have footsteps, so sometimes she'll just come up right next to you and just burst you down, and it's insane. Her ultimate is also insane, because like you just typically copy either a tank or a really crucial DPS or support, and you can just carry a team fight with that. Probably one of her best copies right now is to copy Ramatra, because of the fact that when Ramatra goes into Nemesis form, he gains a bunch of extra armor. And one of the things about Echo at the moment is that I think her HP is capped at 300, if I remember correctly, when she transforms into a tank. So gaining that extra armor while turning into Ramatra to go past that 300 threshold is actually a big deal. On top of his ultimate also being pretty can sometimes be devastating as well. Having two tanks in general can be devastating. So Echo is a really good pick if you take the time to learn her. All right, next up we're going into the snipers. Ashe is a solid pick. Okay, I feel a lot of people are honestly sleeping on Ashe right now. Her dynamite is so much easy value. Dynamite is also a pretty decent counter to a lot of flankers like Genji, sort of kind of Tracer. She can get rid of it pretty easily. Flyers as well. She's hit scan, so it's easy to like pick people off from a distance. I have a pretty decent, depending on the map, decent enough time picking off characters, hard to hit characters like Zenyatta, who are usually like all the way in the back and stuff. So Ashe is pretty good. And top of Bob is probably one of the best DPS ultimates in the game at the moment, in my opinion, because there's almost no counters to Bob at the moment. There's only literally a handful, like sleep on a sleep dart, Sombra's hack, but you don't really see a whole lot of Sombras these days. But when you do, like she can shut down Bob. Those are probably the two main hard counters to Bob at the moment. Unless the enemy team decides to try and kill Bob, like through a Discord, or maybe they have a Bastion on the team or something like that. Bob gets a lot of value. Like he's on it's like having a second tank on the field. It's really insane. So Ashe is pretty solid at the moment. Hanzo's also solid. I would argue that maybe Hanzo is more so on the weaker side of the snipers at the moment, just because he is projectile. He still has that one-shot ability, of course, but because he is projectile, and at least in season 3 there's a lot of long-range maps in the map pool right now, it makes hitting those shots a lot more unreliable compared to all the other snipers. He's still good. His dragons is still not the best ultimate, just because you can see it coming for the most part. Yeah, he's still a solid pick. He still has insane damage, and if you're a good Hanzo player in terms of aim mechanics, you can still get a lot of value out of him, but definitely on the weaker side. He's not weak enough. He's an average, but he's definitely on among the snipers. He's probably the weakest sniper in my opinion. Next up we have Widow. Widow is easily the most one of the most busted DPS at the moment. It's kind of like along the same side as Tracer. Like a good Tracer player can like control a lobby. Widow's the exact same boat. If you're a good Widow player, you have good aim mechanics, you could just absolutely scare shitless the enemy team. Like they're just scared to play the video game. I feel like, truthfully, in my opinion, I don't think it doesn't really matter how much they nerf Widowmaker, as long as Widowmaker retains the one-shot capabilities, she will always be an OP hero, in my opinion. But she is definitely the best sniper at the moment. And last but not least, I have Sojorn classified as a sniper just because her railgun basically snipes people from range still. But Sojorn is still definitely up here. I'm gonna put Sojorn kind of in the middle of the pack, just because I feel like Ashe's mid fight can be a little bit better because her hit scan is a lot more reliable compared to Sojorn. But Sojorn has mobility, really good mobility, I should add. On top of, she still has that one-shot capability, which Ashe doesn't have with the railgun. She's a lot more aim intensive, of course, too. I would say Sojorn has to get, if your aim mechanics are solid enough, Sojorn has the capabilities to still be S tier. I'm gonna say that, but it's a lot harder to pop off with her compared to, or get value out of her compared to Ashe's Bob, for example. And you're probably gonna have a Mercy, and at least when you get higher tiers, you're more likely to get the Mercy pockets for damage boost. And Ashe can be a little bit more reliable in those situations. So it's a bit of a toss-up. She has the capability to be S tier, but in the majority of situations, she's kind of in the middle, in my opinion. Yeah. So still a solid pick regardless. Next up, we have the hit scan department. Bastion, I think Bastion's actually is still a solid pick. Bastion, let's just say it. Bastion's a little bit of a toss-up because I would say once you start reaching Masters, Bastion starts to fall more into the average category just simply because of how big his hitbox is, and pretty much by the time you reach Masters, every DPS player in that rank can land their shot, or at least reliably hit their shot for the most part. It makes it really hard to shut down, or makes it really easy, I should say, to shut down a Bastion pretty easily. A good Bastion needs to be creative to get value. I practically one-tricked Bastion on DPS all the way up to like Diamond 1, the cusp of Masters. And that's when I started kind of struggling, just because that's when a lot of DPS players as well start picking more of the better DPS in the game. And right now, burst damage and snipers and stuff tend to be among the best in terms of damage output at the moment. That's why characters like Tracer, Widow, and stuff are pretty good, because one-shots in general are really good. Anything with burst damage and one-shots are really good. Tracer, if you're good enough, you can one-clip somebody before they even like realize that they died. Widow can one-shot. Obviously, majority of snipers can one-shot. Echo can burst someone down. Bastion kind of can burst someone down, but it still takes a little bit of time. But the thing is about Bastion is like you can react in time enough when he starts shooting at you before you die. I don't know. I'd say for the average player, he's average. But if you take the time to actually learn Bastion, he's solid. So going back to the assumptions for this tier list, like I said before, that you're actually playing these heroes kind of how they meant to be. I'm putting them in the solid category still. Probably on the weaker side of the hit scan, but still a solid pick. Yeah. So the only DPS I'm gonna put in average, I'm putting Soldier in average, to be honest. Just because of the fact that for like maybe like gold plat players, Soldier can be a decent pick, but it's literally in the lower ranks that Soldier gets any value. Once you start even reaching diamond and higher, you're gonna struggle in Soldier, just because he literally doesn't really bring any. Literally, the only thing he even brings to the table compared to any other DPS in the game is that he has his own form of self heal that your teammates can benefit from as well. That is literally his main contribution, because he doesn't outclass anybody else, especially among the hit scan. And what he does. So he's in the average category now. Once you start hitting diamond and stuff, I would recommend playing some of the other hit scans in the game, like Cassidy. Cassidy is easily, I would say Cassidy is probably the most broken hit scan in the game at the moment. His grenade is literally the most BS ability in the game at the moment. It's just too free. It does way too much damage with little to no actual skill to use. You can just vaguely look in a character's direction, throw that thing, and it'll just home in on them and do 130 damage. It's stupid. It's just stupid. You just need to body shot somebody once with a grenade and they're dead. On a squishy, I should say. It's just ridiculous. Grenade needs to be looked at. That's just bonkers. Cassidy is definitely the best hit scan at the moment for sure. Now I'm on to the projectile DPS. Junkrat. I'm gonna put Junkrat in average. You can still get good value. I feel like right now Junkrat is really kind of limited to maps, the map pick at the moment. If he doesn't get a good map, he can kind of struggle. Especially since, like I said before, Season 3 is kind of dominated by long sightline maps, which are usually you usually play hit scan and poke type heroes. So basically hit scan and snipers you usually play on those maps. So Junkrat tends to, and there's usually more open space that Junkrat can kind of struggle a little bit. So Junkrat's more on the average side for this season. Especially ever since they nerfed his mine, so he can't really reliably do the two-shot combo anymore. Yeah, he definitely kind of get hit hard a little bit. In the metal ranks and like gold and plat, he still gets good value. But once you get beyond plat, like you're gonna start struggling quite a bit, for sure. Next up, we have Pharah. Pharah is still a solid pick. She still does a lot of damage. Hopefully, you're gonna have a mercy pocket to go alongside you, which makes it hard to kill you. Yeah, she's still she's even in higher ranks, like a good Pharah can still warp the game a little bit. It just really depends on how good on Pharah are you. Better Pharahs at higher ranks are basically going to end up playing around corners and playing around cover a lot more often, so it's a lot harder just to hit them in the first place. So Pharah's still a solid pick if you're good enough at her. Next up, we have Symmetra. You know, surprisingly, Symmetra is actually pretty good at the moment. I would argue that in a lot of situations, Symmetra is a little bit better than like Pharah. You'd be surprised. Like, oh my god. Let me put it like this: in like the middle ranks, where there's not really much coordination, let alone valuable or efficient coordination, I should add in that part aspect as well. Symmetra can just thrive on the chaos a little bit, especially on certain map types like control. She can be really good. Certain like escort and hybrid maps, she could be really good as well too. She has a decent enough map pool that she can thrive on. And even in map pools where maybe she's kind of average in, she can still do pretty well because she has the TP shenanigans that she can do. And even if you only get like one or two teammates to TP with you, like you can throw enemies off guard in terms of strategies. And then once you reach in the higher ranks, because you have better coordination, you can actually do pretty crazy and like cheeky TP strategies as a team to just bypass entire choke points. Or to surprise enemies from behind and stuff to get cheeky kills. It's a lot of mind games that Symmetra can do. And her wall is probably one of the best DPS ultimates in the game. If you're playing a shield, if your team has a shield tank and you're playing Symmetra, that's practically like two barriers that you have on your team a lot of times, because Symmetra has one of the fastest charging ultimates in the game. It's actually kind of nuts how much value she gets at the moment. She's a lot, I feel like she's definitely one of the more slept on DPS for sure, but she's definitely a good a good DPS. Let me go ahead and move this so you guys can see the tier list a little bit better. All right, next up we have Mei. Mei is also in the solid category. I would say, realistically, I think Mei is probably one of the better DPS among the DPS roster for sure. Like across the board, because of the fact that Mei practically acts almost like a second tank a lot of times. Heck, a lot of times that I'll play Mei. When I play DPS, I tend to fall back on Mei a lot of times because she has self-heal. So I don't have to, if we have a low heal support duo, I don't have to worry about them as much about healing me. I can heal myself. I can cleanse myself. That's also a big one. So if I get antied, cleanse. I get dynamited from Ashe, cleanse. I get bled from Junkrat Queen, cleansed. Like I can cleanse anything. It's great. I heal and cleanse myself, and I can protect myself in it. But you can also do a lot of shenanigans with it too. Like you can body block doorways with the ice block. It's pretty good. Ice wall is basically like a second barrier. It's really, I find that I tend to play Mei a lot more times when my tank is playing something like Junkrat Queen or Roadhog, or maybe like a Wrecking Ball or something, depending on the map. Because then at the very least, while they're off doing their own shenanigans out in Narnia, I can kind of act as the pseudo tank on the team. And whenever, you know, things are getting dicey, I can put up a wall up to protect my team a little bit. And her ultimate is definitely one of the better ultimates in the game as well. So Mei is, and I think even in like contenders and stuff, Mei is being played a lot. So Mei is definitely probably one of the sleeper picks in the game as well among the DPS. It's just the fact that a lot of players, especially since there's a lot of new players in the game, a lot of people want to pick, you know, the more fun shooty type of DPS like Ashe, Cassidy, Widowmaker, you know, those type of things. But Mei is arguably one of the better ones. Mei requires a lot more game sense. That's the only stipulation, but she's still pretty damn good. Next up, we have Torbjorn. I'm also going to put Torb in the solid category. The only reason Torb, I would say, is in solid is for like two reasons, to be honest. A, his turret is decent enough at still warding off flankers. So like against Tracer, Sombra, Genji, Echo and stuff, and Flyers too, Pharah. The turret's still pretty decent enough at helping to ward them off. And that and his primary fire still does a lot of damage. There's a lot of times I'm fighting a Torb, I'm like, I just got like 2 or 3 shot before I realized it, thinking like I was still going to be able to live. But no, he's still like, he just killed me like out of nowhere. I'm like, I was not expecting that. So he still has enough lethality if your aim's good enough at him. And the turret is still valuable enough against dive, a good anti-dive option. But really, I personally, and this is my personal opinion, I would like to place Torb in the average, but because he still does good enough damage output and he's decent enough counter to dive, sort of, he's in the solid category still. Yeah, but other than that, that was my tier list for the DPS heroes. Go ahead and let me know what you guys' thoughts are in the comment section down below. I do read the comments, so I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, especially anybody in the lower ranks. I'm curious to see what you guys think about it. But other than that, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. I am going to be streaming sometime today, maybe sometime around the time this video comes out for all I know. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.